To the J-Ade Podcast. You are now listening.
We're getting ready to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the J-Ade Podcast. It's your boy J-Ade in the building. We are back for Season 3, Episode 7 of the show. Thank you to everybody who has been staying tuned and listening and streaming and sharing and everything like that through the Season 3, Episode 5, and Season 3, Episode 6, since the coronavirus did hit us. But like I said, this is Season 3, Episode 7. And before I introduce the guests to my left and to my right, make sure to follow your boy on social media at Joe the Great. That's JOETHEGR 8, as well as my podcast page at j.ade.pod. Both on the gram. Like I said, we have two very, very special guests today. We have a lady to my left and a gentleman to my right, as we always do. We're going to have the lady introduce herself first, then we're going to have the gentleman do so subsequently. So, lady, what's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Naomi, and I'm from the DMV area.
Okay, Naomi. And you got any social media to shout out?
Yes, as told by Naomi B.
Okay. And you know any brands or anything you want to shout out to?
Yes, I'm a graphic designer, so follow me at as created by Naomi B.
Follow her on that, man. You want to spell it, or is it a little bit too much to spell?
Okay, A-S-C.
Now, all right, so we have a gentleman here too, and this is somebody who's been on the show before. He was on the show during a period where I wasn't really taking the show quite seriously at that point, but he still showed love and came through for an episode during Season 1 about Can Money Buy Happiness, you know, and that was definitely a really fun conversation.
Great
but, you know,
episode.
it's definitely a different show altogether at this point. But he's back, you know what I'm saying? So, gentlemen, what's your name? Where you from? Welcome back, man.
Glad to be back. My name is Tayo Kuku Jr.
All right.
I go as Tayo Jr. on my social media platforms.
Okay.
I'm a photographer and creative director based here in D.C.
All right.
It's an honor to be back on the J-Ade Podcast.
You already know what
man.
time it is, man.
You already know.
Welcome back, man. So, yeah, we got Naomi, we got Tayo right quick, man. You know what I'm saying? They already shouted out their social media. Make sure to follow your boy on social media at Joe the Great and j.ade.pod on the gram, as I said. But we're going to get to the nitty gritty, man. More controversial topics upon your dome today. So without further ado, life is all about exchanges. Whether we notice it or not, almost all of the things we have in life are a direct result of a transaction, which is defined as an exchange or interaction between people. Some people tend to put more weight into their involvement in these transactions than others do by highlighting the aftermath, while others don't focus on them as heavily, characterizing them as just another aspect of everyday life. That being said, today we'll be covering the topic of counting favors. All right, so we had the lady introduce herself first, but now we're going to have the gentleman state his opinion first. We're going to start out with this first question. We're going to start from a granular level here. We're going to break it down all the way. First question is, what do you define as a favor?
Favor really to me is just any act, any deed that benefits another individual.
Okay.
Whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It could be small. You know, it could be a drop off. It could be an introduction. It could be anything that's a favor. Anything that puts an individual in a better position than they were in before.
Okay. All right.
Simply put.
And what do you think, young lady? What is a favor to you? How do you find it?
I definitely agree with his point that it is an act that, you know, is going to benefit somebody else.
Okay.
And I would like to add that it's not something that's going to benefit me. I mean, if it's a favor, I'm not going to gain anything from it.
So to you, favors are one-sided?
Yeah.
Okay.
Quality.
You agree that favors are one-sided as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. And
At least it should be.
Okay.
It should be, yes.
All right, we're going to talk about cases in which, you know, people believe that favors should not be one-sided. But I just wanted to start from a beginning level, right? What do we define them to be? Okay, so we're going to take it a step further, right? What do you consider to be counting favors? Like, how do you define that? What does it look like to count favors, in your opinion, or in your experience? And either y'all can go first. Doesn't matter.
I think that also plays into what a favor is.
Okay.
It's something that you don't hold, you know, on someone's head.
Okay.
It's not something that you make a note of. You do because you wanted to. You do from a humble, just
You count the favors, or you do the favors, you mean?
you do the favors
Okay, gotcha.
without doing that.
All right.
You know, when you start to count favors, it's
Right.
not really a favor. It's more transactional because
Right.
when you start to count, then you're starting to expect something back in
Okay.
return. And
We're
you're,
gonna
you're
talk
making
about bonus.
you're making like it's like you're keeping a tab.
Right.
You know, I did that. Okay, cool. Next time, okay, I did this, and then you're keeping a tab.
Exactly.
A favor is something that you do without expecting anything back in return.
Got you. Okay. And what do you think about that? So what does counting favors mean to you, right? So when you hear that term, I know a lot of people have been talking about it, especially as of late. People have been talking about a lot of things during quarantine, quite honestly. But what does counting favors mean to you specifically?
Well, to me, counting favors is basically like, okay, so I did this for you, so you need to make sure you do this for me next time.
Okay.
Or I'm always doing things for you, and you never do anything for me. That would be like counting favors.
Okay, so keeping tabs on everything that you do. So you guys are both saying the same thing, and that's what I agree with as well. I think that favors are things that you do for people out of the kindness of your heart, and counting favors is the idea of keeping tabs on what you're doing, which in theory kind of makes it not a favor at that point, right? Because it's no longer genuine. But we're going to take it a step further again, right? Is counting favors something that is done subconsciously, or you think this is something that people learn over time? Like, you think it's like an upbringing thing, and we're going to get into family. That's the first thing we're going to talk about here. So would you say it's subconsciously, like, oh, it's just in human nature for us to remember the things we did for other people? Or would you say that this is something that your upbringing or your surroundings have led you to do over time?
This is the counting favors?
Right. So is this subconscious, or is this something that you grow up learning how to do?
I feel like it's something that you kind of see. I feel like if you're brought up with principles of doing things for people out of the kindness of your heart, counting favors to you is kind of odd, because it's like, why would I be counting favors if I'm doing this with great intentions?
Right.
So I think it's something that you see and you witness. However, I think like catching on to like people and their motives, I think that's something like over time that happens subconsciously. I don't think you come out the gate like, oh, well, I did this for this person today, so next week they need to make sure they do that for me.
Okay, so for you, from a beginning level, is there ever a sense of maybe it's not necessarily their upbringing that's leading to them doing this? Because I know you said that there's an aspect of nature, right? But there's also an aspect of nurture, right? So you're saying it's 50-50? Or would you say it weighs heavily on one side more than the other?
I think it depends. I think it depends on the situation, but I think your principles and your upbringing definitely plays a part in it.
Okay. Yeah. And what do you think about that?
So I definitely think that how you're raised is going to play a big part in whether someone counts favors. I also think that, we have to look at exactly what the favors are. Okay. And how much someone is starting to invest in someone else. Right. Because that also starts to lead to someone, like, especially when it's one-sided, you know, if the favors are coming, equally, I don't see how anyone would just, make that mental tab unless it was something that they have noticed and have been like nurtured into, as you said, as their space. Okay. But there's also an aspect of, just the nature of the circumstances that someone is in and what is leading them to do those favors, the dynamic of the relationship of that, I guess, the favor transactions or favor dynamic that's been going on between two people. And I really think it's a case-by-case situation, but generally, when you're counting favors, it's something that I think that is something that, you've seen and you've been taught. Because on the contrary, when you don't count favors, when you've been, basically raised to do things out of the kindness of your heart, for other people, when you do things for, just because it's almost satisfying to you to help others. Exactly. Then, counting favors is like when you said, it's not something that you do. It's not something that is obviously you're gonna remember. Right. But making a mental note of it is not it's not gonna be something that you do.
I got you. Okay. And for me, I think that it's kind of interesting also to note that, like you said, upbringing is a major part of it as well. But I think there's two groups of people. When thinking about family, there's two groups of people, right? So there's those who believe what their parents do for them is a privilege. And then there are those who believe that what their parents do for them is expected. And I wanted to know from you guys, right? In terms of favors, right? Obviously, the things that your parents do for you are not necessarily considered to be favors, right? But in my mind, at least. But what do you guys think about that, right? So in terms of counting favors and in terms of, people doing things for you, as you said, typically a favor is a situation where somebody is doing something for someone else with not necessarily expecting it back, right? So, like I said again, reiterating, some people believe that parents do things for them as a privilege, while other people believe that some people, like that parents need to do these things out of necessity. So which one do you think it is? Either of y'all. Like, you think it's a necessity, or do you think it's a privilege for your parents to do what they do for you?
I definitely think that for a certain period of time, it is definitely a necessity. Okay. When you bring a child into this world, they didn't have a choice to come into this world.
Right.
So they definitely need you, and they're literally called dependents for a reason, because they are dependent on your support.
Exactly.
So what you do for your child, what parents do for their kids, is definitely a necessity up to a certain point.
Right.
Now, free housing at 30, I will not say is a necessity.
So that's a favor at that point.
That's definitely a privilege that, that individual is reaping the benefit of.
Exactly.
And like I said, it's going to be, I don't want to assign a time to it, because a parent's love, I feel like, is endless. So even at that 30 years old, they're still going to be, even maybe begrudgingly, but they will still, out of the love of their heart,
look out for the kids.
Look out for that child.
And even then, that varies based on the parents too.
Exactly.
Sometimes parents won't even.
Exactly.
Okay.
But based on my upbringing, that's all I can speak on.
Yeah.
Based on how I was raised, how I know I want to raise my children, I will definitely be providing for them.
Okay.
With everything I can.
I feel that.
I'm
the same way.
That's how I see it.
Okay. And then like I said to you as well, you guys define favors as something in which somebody's receiving something and not necessarily, expecting it back, right? And the idea of parenting is, like Tayo said, you're their dependents, right? But there's some people that believe that what your parents do for you is a privilege, and there are other people that believe that what your parents do for you is expected. What side are you on?
I feel like Tayo said, when you're brought into this world, when you bring a child into this world, like, they're your responsibility.
Okay.
You care for them. And then at a certain point, that direct soul care should transition into support. Like, I'm supporting you. You make your own decisions. This is your life. So I don't think out the gate just feeling like, at 35 or 40, like, you're entitled to your parents, favors or them doing things for you.
Right.
I don't really think that's fair to them, but yeah, no, I definitely think there's a certain point in time where that it transitions to support.
Okay.
I also think though that it's also comes a point when there's a full circle moment where the parent that was once the nurturer, once the provider, starts to become the party that is the nurtured.
Yeah.
At least in my mind, that's also how I see it in life.
I agree.
I'm definitely, I won't say I'm at that position yet, but I definitely find ways to at least help out.
Exactly.
Especially being the eldest in the family, I just feel like it's that onus, that responsibility just falls on me naturally.
I feel that.
So like I said, I think it's based on the situation you're in. There are other people that I know that they move out, they start their lives, and it's like, okay, no, my parents have had their time to settle themselves and build themselves.
Right.
I'm gonna live life for me, and whatever I make,
forget about the parents.
is for me and my household and for my well-being. So it's all again how you were brought up and the values that you stand on.
And I think that's an interesting point too, that you're talking about the fact that you're going to nurture your parents. Is it as a direct result of the fact that they nurtured you, or is it just because you feel as though that's what you would like to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it like, oh, I'm repaying you for what you did for me, or is it a matter of like
a little bit of both? I'm a person that always looks at the circumstance.
Okay.
If I'm a parent and I am blessed with a position to give my child whatever they need,
right?
Even if it's in excess to some other people, I will do that because I am in that position to do so.
Right.
If I'm the child and I am in a position to help my parents out,
right?
Of course I'm going to do so, because then I feel like that reflects on you as a person. Especially if your parents could be in a better position than they're in, or your child could be in a better position than they're in.
Right.
If you're willingly making a decision to not better them, and you have the means to do so,
then you have to do some internal checking at that point, man. Because it's like
exactly. So that's just the framework that I look at things through.
Okay, but at the same time, though, it's interesting that you mentioned that point of doing it, especially if you have the means to do it. Like, why not do it? But there's other people that feel like, you know what, their parents are pressuring them and using what they have done for them as a reason to try to get their kids to reciprocate. So I want to get your thoughts on that from both of you guys. You can go first. So what are your thoughts on parents reminding you of things that they've done for you as a way for you to then reciprocate those things in some way back to them? And would you do it?
Well, no, I wouldn't do it. I think that's just very unnecessary, because I would hope I've raised my child enough to the point where, they appreciate anybody in their life.
Right.
So, and I really wouldn't want to have to force my kids to nurture me, take care of me, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't want that I want them to make a choice with anybody, make a choice.
But what if they don't make that choice?
then they just don't make that choice. Like, I mean, that's something I have to deal with, and they have to deal with at the end of the day. But
I mean, like in reality, as a mother, how's your response to that? Like, you've raised your kids, whatever the case is, and like Tayo said, they have the means, they have the like they have a route to do that. They have the financial whatever to make that happen, and they decide not to.
Well, I think the important thing to know is that
and we're gonna talk about motives a little bit more too, because like we're gonna get deep with this for sure.
You don't really have to like nurture someone by providing for them.
Let's talk about it.
I think that we should also take into fact that sometimes people need emotional support. And it just goes past the financial support.
Okay.
So I mean, I feel like if my kid didn't want to be there for me at all, like if all they had to do was offer me emotional support, then okay, like. Or if all they had to offer was financial support, okay, you should know your child at that point.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. Would it break my heart, me being an emotional person, that my child is not there to emotionally support me? Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here and lie.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's life. I think at the end of the day, whether or not this is your mom, your dad, your sister, or brother, people are people.
Okay.
So I think you have to see people for them being the human being that they are, and not just off of like, oh, this is my mom, so you're supposed to do this, or this is my child, you're supposed to do this.
Gotcha. Okay, what are your thoughts on that, right? So a situation where, you are well off, like you said, and you're in the future at this point, and your parents are kind of using the fact that I did this and that for you growing up. Where is it for me now? What is your response to that? And would you do it as a parent? Like, is there a point where you'd say, like, damn, like my kids are really not doing anything to look out for me? I need some reciprocity or reciprocation at this point.
As a parent, I would honestly have to hold that L, because
for real, what would holding L look like though? That's what I want to know.
I would not hold it over my child's head.
Okay.
All the things I did.
So if they put you in a home,
God forbid, I reject.
No. I want to hear both of y'all thoughts on that actually too. So after all you've done for your children, they decide, you know what, we putting their ass in a home.
I mean, this is all just,
So, this is just, what's the word I'm looking for? Hypothetical.
Yeah. Hypothetically speaking. I mean, I don't plan on ever being in that position. But if I was, that would probably mean I had no other option. You know? So, like I said, I would have to hold that L. There's nothing else I can do. If the decision is made and I have to go to that home, then the decision is made. Okay. Like, this goes back to the first questions you asked. All the things that I did for my children, I did out of love.
Right.
And because I needed to. It was my responsibility.
That's my job. Exactly.
So I could never, and this is just me, come back and be like, all these things that I did for you, that I had to do for you, that I wanted to do for you out of love, how are you not going to pay me back? That means that I didn't do it. And from that
out of love, exactly.
True point of love and that true point of just the position I was in and who I was in that child's life.
Exactly.
So that's why I could never come back and start holding or counting those favors in their head.
Okay.
On the contrary, on the other side, if I was, the child and I was getting pressured from my parents to do whatever it may be,
right,
I would have to take a look and see what I've done. For them to do that, they're
even
either
speak out on it. Exactly.
Ungrateful because I could have already been doing stuff.
And they wanted you to do more, exactly.
Emotionally, financially, in the ways and the capacities that I could be there.
Right.
And they're either ungrateful, at which point, as a man, I have to check them on that.
Right.
And then,
what would checking them look like to you? A situation where, this is hypothetical, once again, but a situation where you're...
That's when I feel like the county favors needs to come out.
Okay. So how would you present that, though?
That's when you need to come out with the receipts.
Okay.
That car I bought you.
Okay.
What was that? The mortgage that's paid off. What was that? All the things that they might have started to take for granted over the years.
But this is at the point in which they...
This is when they're forcing me to now start pulling out the tab that I had in my mind submerged.
Right.
That's when I need to start pulling them out.
Okay, we're gonna talk about that too. Like what it takes to really bring out those.
Exactly, and that's the point where you need to start humbling people.
Right.
And that's the only time I see a need for county favors.
And we're gonna talk about that too.
But if I haven't been doing those things, then I need to look within myself, and that's. Like we said, that's when you need to really check and see your character.
Like, what have I done at this point?
What have I been doing?
Exactly.
With the position I've been given and the things I've been blessed with, how have I been using that to bless the people that I love?
Right.
So,
and so I kind of want to get your feedback on that too, right? Would it ever reach the point of checking people? I know initially, because he said that, he agreed with you saying that, he would take the L potentially, but then he went on to say that, depending on the situation, people might have to get checked. Mm-hmm. Would you check anybody? Or is it really just a matter of, all right, I'm hurt by this and, that's it?
We're talking about like parents.
Yeah. So your parents coming at you saying, yo, like, what's up?
Are we gonna expand this?
Yo, no,
we're parents.
All
right,
yeah, for sure.
No, I think a conversation should be had with your parents, but it shouldn't. I don't feel like it needs to get into like this whole big argument or a brawl. Like, just communicate effectively. Like,
how does communicating effectively with your parents in that situation? Because you also have to think about the cultural aspects, right?
Yeah.
So culturally, right, depending on what kind of parents you have, there are people where you can grow up in an environment where your parents doing stuff for you. You're gonna hear about it every single day because they're making sure that I'm your parent and I did this for you. I paid for this. I bought that. I took you here. I brought you there. Mm-hmm. So in those situations, if you grow up in that kind of environment, in theory, it sounds good to say, okay, yeah, I'll speak up because same way people try to say, oh yeah, I'm not my ancestors. I would have fought back. Blah blah blah. Shut up. You wouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? How does that factor in, right? The cultural aspect, like your actual upbringing coming in. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think
I guess talk about yours and then talk about, I guess, the other side of things too, if you can.
Like for me, I think I could have a conversation with my parents, and it would be okay. Like it wouldn't be a huge issue. Like I think initially, it may be like they may be taken aback a little bit.
Right.
But I think also you kind of have to figure out like why are they responding this way?
Right.
Like sometimes it could just be like a you thing, or it could be something from their childhood that they've suppressed. Like you really just don't know. So I think even just taking that route, like hey, I've noticed I've been doing X, Y, and Z, but for you feel like I'm not. Like let's talk about it. Like what's really going on here, and why do you feel this way?
But I feel like at the same time, a lot of people's parents don't open up to their kids in that way to even have that kind of conversation. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about like a memory that's suppressed from their childhood. I feel like a lot of parents would just charge it again, like, shut up, why are you questioning me? You know what I'm saying? Or what do you think? Like in terms of being able to, I guess, speak out to your parents about that or have that kind of candid conversation, but thinking about the culture in which you come from growing up.
So, I mean, the culture that I came from,
and I want to talk about extended family after this too.
There aren't many open pathways for communication. Okay. It's more so dictation. It's more so authoritarian.
I say this and you do it.
Regime. That's really the baseline across African households.
High-key.
At least when I was growing up, that's what it was.
High-key.
Now, as I've reached a more mature age and a wiser age, an age of more understanding, and my parents have finally realized that understanding. Now there's more discourse.
Right.
Now there's more
room for you to kind of give your opinions,
and give the reason why I disagree, and give the reason why I'm not going to do what you said just because you said it. There's more room for that. Okay. So in the situation where they they approach me about something, there would be that room for conversation. Okay. And I wasn't going to say that. When I said check them earlier, it wasn't necessarily, be an argument.
Right.
It would just mean that I'm
calling it out.
I'm just going to start speaking up for myself.
Right.
And stand up for myself and lay out the receipts that over the years may have been forgotten. Because that's another thing about favors is that when people get too comfortable, they start to become or start to feel entitled.
Yeah.
And we're
going to talk about that too. The entitlement that comes with it.
Huge sense of entitlement.
Right.
That leads to counting favors.
Right.
You know? And I feel like even when there isn't that entitlement on the person that's receiving, there's sometimes that entitlement on the person that's giving, that because I've done all this stuff,
I should
start receiving some, some reimbursement in my favors.
Okay.
So I guess that feeling of entitlement is really what sets people apart for counting favors or not counting favors.
Okay, and I want to talk about that too, the feeling of entitlement, because that's something I wanted to bring up. At what point does the person doing the favor take responsibility on themselves, right? Because you can't do 10 things for somebody, right? You notice that nothing's being reciprocated, and you want to get angry that they keep their hands out like this. You know what I'm saying? At what point does the person doing the act take responsibility for the entitlement that they now see before them? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Maybe you can speak on that first.
I feel like initially I really just...
And we're going to transition into friends after this because I want to talk about that too.
I don't want to be friends or be around anybody that I feel like I have to count favors for. Because
Okay.
what's the point of our relationship?
Right.
Like, if I can't just be a friend to you, if I can't just be a girlfriend, whatever the case may be, what's the point of us even talking at this point?
Right.
Because, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I want to be able to do things out of the kindness of my heart for you without me feeling like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that because this person doesn't do X, Y, and Z. Like,
But at the same time, there's people that argue that, you know, they have certain people in their life, like their lives for certain reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people that like this, where like they have friends for certain things. They have friends that, you know, that
Okay.
they party with. They have friends that they work out with. They have friends that they, you know, listen to music with or vibe with and stuff like that. So in situations like that, you know, let's say that partying friend is asking for a little bit more than your friend that you go to the gym with. At that point, like, how do you balance that, right? It's like, okay, we're friends for different things, so I don't know all of you. I just know you in this light, right? So at one point does that become heavy on you, right? So we talked about this in the last episode, and pocket watching specifically, the idea of that one broke friend, the friend who never got no money. I wanted to know from you guys, right? At what point do you draw the line with that, right? At what point, like, how many dollars does it take to say, yo, like, nigga, where's your bread at? You feel me? Like, at what point do you ask that question? I need to know from you guys too, because I think it's important to talk about it. What do you think?
So I'm glad you brought that up.
Let's talk about it.
With like money.
Let's talk about it.
Monetarily, you know, we go out or we go to the store, grocery
Right,
store, you
right.
know, just to stop on the way out, whatever it may be. I might get, you know, a friend of mine some snacks, some drinks, let's say $10 worth of stuff.
Right.
You know, I know I've gotten that, but if that's my friend, I expect that the next time he's got me.
Gonna look out.
That doesn't mean that if he doesn't have me the next
gonna be
time,
mad.
I'm gonna check him
Right.
or start like, yo, last time, da 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 da.
Right.
I don't hold that. It's
Right.
just that kind of friendship that I have that trust and that faith.
Right.
If it gets to the point where it's now been $40, $50, $60, $70, $100 that I'm starting to put up for someone who clearly doesn't have any intent of, you know, kind of taking some of that weight off of me whenever I'm or we're out
Especially
together.
if this is somebody who you know has it. That's
Exactly.
way different. I feel like at that point, yep.
And that comes into the spot or in the position where, you know, people will use you and take advantage of you
Until you
when
say
you
something.
let them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes, not sometimes, you need to stand up for yourself.
Right.
And this is beyond monetarily. This
Right.
is just life stuff. I'm someone that if I'm in a position to help, I will always help.
Right.
And even to a fault, even when I have stuff going on, even when I have deliverables and deadlines that I need to meet,
Right.
if someone needs my help, I'm going to help them.
Right.
But there have been times, especially recently, where it's like, I need to start putting myself first.
Right.
I need to start learning how to say no.
Right.
It's that balance, you know?
Okay.
That doesn't mean just be selfish or just be completely inconsiderate and not putting others or giving others the time.
Right.
But also, you have to realize and just know that, you know, people are going to continue to use you and use you and use you and use you until you tell
say
them
something about it.
no. And you know, that first no might sound harsh, but
It's gonna
the
feel
reality.
good though. It's
Oh,
gonna feel good,
exactly.
especially if there's a pattern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on that, right? So the broke friend, right? The friend that's never, you know, that's always take, but doesn't necessarily have any intention of really reciprocating. And like I said, we already addressed the idea of at some point the giver has to take responsibility, right? But at the same time, though, how do you feel as the giver knowing that, you know what I'm saying? This is somebody that is probably never really gonna show their gratitude. You know what I'm saying? So what do you think about that? I know we talked about entitlement as well, but I wanted to kind of tie it all together, right?
It's a dub. Like,
A dub in terms of what? Like you're gonna dub the friendship?
no, I'm just saying, like, at that point, like I said, I don't like people being around me that I can't be my full self around.
Okay.
So at that point, you know, like if you want to have a conversation, that's great, whatever the case may be. But then you also gotta think about why do they keep coming to me for favors? Like, why are you in this position?
Right.
Like, and if we can't have an open conversation about that, then why are you still coming to me? I'm giving you hundreds of dollars, but you can't sit here and have a conversation with me about the situation that you're in and what you're going through. And then
Well, that's what I'm saying. What if they're not even going through anything? Like, what if niggas just dead ass don't want
this
to?
no. Like, no, if this is a party friend, first of all, if it's a party friend and we're only in the capacity of partying, why are you coming to me with your life
There's a
problems
lot of
asking for
party
money?
friends out there that pull up broke. That's a fact.
But I'm saying,
That's a
Plenty
big
of y'all out
fact.
there who come to the pregame with no bottles, go to the club, don't put up for nothing, and don't have money for food after the club. Friends like that, I don't have them in my circle anymore, man. That was back in 2016.
Real.
Anyway, Continue.
But I'm saying, like, if, let's say you're my friend I go to the gym with, or you're my friend I go to a party with, keep it that way. Like, don't come to me for money. One of your lifelong friends, you do that with them over there. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't try to mix things in, because then at that point, me, the type of person, like, the first time, okay, cool. The second time, okay, cool. But, like, I'm trying to figure out why this keeps happening.
Right. Okay. And I know you brought up something specifically, and I kind of gave you an argument that was contrary to what you said. You brought up the idea of somebody being in a struggle, and I said that what if they're not in a struggle? But let's say they are, right? One thing I wanted to bring up is this idea of got it out the mud, da-da-da-da-da. I did things for you when you was down bad, and I'm bringing it up now. I want to kind of get your opinions on that, and I want to have a specific example, but, we kind of talked about it a little bit on social media for those who follow me. But I wanted to understand from you guys, what do you think about that? The idea of you helping somebody at a very, very, very low point in their life. We talked about family, right? So family, let's say it's not even your parents, your uncle, your auntie, something's going on in your house, and they housed you for how many ever months because things got bad at home, and they're holding that against you, or whatever the case is, right? Or let's even say it's, you're broke, you're on your last dollar, blah, 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 and somebody helps you launch your business that you always wanted to launch. At that point, how do you respond to that? In a situation where you're really, really down bad. So this is not even like money or anything like that, but just a situation where it's a little bit more of an emotional connection with that moment, and they felt the need to bring that up. How do you guys respond to that?
Well, go ahead. I just think we need a little bit more context of how it's brought up.
Okay.
Because we spoke about the entitlement. We spoke about the feeling of needing to bring out those receipts because you felt like you had no other option. Right. Now, if that's not that type of situation that you're in, there should be, under no circumstances, should anything that was done be brought up.
That's what I'm saying.
I
agree. I agree with that too. But there's people that argue that bringing it up somehow uplifts the recipient / beneficiary and also makes the person that did it look good as well. Do you guys agree with that?
I think it's the intention. Like, are we bringing it up because?
There's no intention. Continue. I'll say mine
listen,
after.
if we're sitting here having a conversation and it's like, oh, I remember back in the day when you were struggling with a case maybe, and it's me and you, and we're having that conversation and we're reflecting on how far I've come. Then that's different than you being like, oh yeah, because I remember when you were sleeping in the back seat of my car, X, Y, and Z. Like, I feel like the audience matters, and I feel like the intention matters. Like, if you want to reflect, then okay, cool. But like, it's kind of messed up if you're doing it just to show up like that you were a good person, or that you were doing. Because then at that point, like, why are you really doing it?
Exactly.
The audience and the intention. Continue.
And that's exactly it. Like, I just feel like it's very corny, especially the people that it goes into the same, name of all the people that do a favor for someone, give out shoes to the homeless, give out help, or just help someone that's on the street.
What are your thoughts on that? Like,
and then they record it.
Yo, that's perfect.
So you're not doing it because you care about that person.
Right.
You're doing it because you wanted the gratification.
Right.
You wanted the applause after your selfless act, which wasn't selfless. You put yourself first. Recording them, making them feel more vulnerable than they already are.
Yeah, I don't
That's
get
one
that.
of the corniest things I've ever seen.
I agree.
And it's just dumb, especially when you're unprovoked, when it's completely unnecessary.
Right.
I don't see the need for that.
What do you think about that too? The idea of recording homeless people, or just like philanthropy in general, but doing it on camera and like kind of sharing it and posting it. Some people say that you're doing this favor or you're blessing these people, so you should show it as a way to motivate others. But at the same time, I don't know, man. I feel like I don't be seeing these things a lot of times, and I feel motivated after, personally. I don't know about y'all.
It's corny. Like, I just don't think you should. Someone's at their low. They're already vulnerable. They're already accepting something from you. So think about that. Like, even though they're homeless, whatever the situation is, like, they're still a person.
Right.
So they're already vulnerable. So they're now taking something from you. You're recording it, and then you're going to show everybody that they're, accepting this thing from you when they don't really have much.
Right.
But then, like, they're on camera. So it's like, now people see them. That's on the internet forever. And I don't think people realize that.
Facts.
Even if they are on their feet and they get themselves together, like,
that will always be out there.
That will always be out there.
And I think that's an important point you made about the audience specifically, right? And just kind of looping back to what we were talking about in terms of doing things for other people. How do you guys feel about people publicly? So Naomi brought up the idea of reflecting one-on-one, saying, oh, damn, like, look how far we can, da-da-da. Remember them days when we was blah, 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 blah. But now, what if it's something that is shared on a large platform? Like, yo, like, here's a picture of me and blah, 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 blah. I remember the days where, like she said, he was sleeping on the back seat of my car. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something you would do? And at the same time, is that, like, how would you feel if you were on the receiving end of that?
So we're all a product of opportunity.
Right.
And no one gets to where they are all by themselves.
Right.
Pulling themselves by their bootstraps.
Right.
It's not a one-man effort.
Right.
So based on that understanding, it's really inconsequential what you may have done for that. I won't even say inconsequential, but in the greater scheme of things, what you did is all part of the destiny of that person.
Right.
And you played your role.
Right.
You did that. And that person is where they are because that's where they should have been.
Right.
What's theirs will always have been theirs.
Right.
So for you to bring that up in a large setting,
Right.
just to really proliferate yourself and raise yourself to kind of match up with that person,
Right.
and have some kind of like that, like you're entitled to their success.
Right.
It goes back into that selfish mindset.
Right. Like, what
wasn't-
motivated you to do that? Like, what do you gain?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's my
there's in my head, there's really no place for it.
Yeah.
No place for it. Reflecting one-on-one, being grateful for each other, that's one thing.
Right.
But then bringing an outside audience, like you said, the social media aspect of it,
Right.
bringing everyone in to make you feel better for
Exactly.
your deed,
Exactly.
it's not a favor at that point.
Right.
And if I was on the receiving end of that, I would definitely feel away.
Yeah.
I would definitely feel like now I'm indebted to that person. Whatever.
I swear.
Whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever. And it's funny because we literally I still showed you that verse the week.
I actually have it written down.
I
can read it if you want, but you can continue.
I particularly don't ask for things.
Right.
Because, especially from people that I don't really know like that.
Right.
Because I never want anyone to be able to hold anything over my
I'm
head.
the same way.
Ever.
I'm the same way.
Ever. I do not ever want someone to be able to say, I did this for you. Because I know how humans are. I know that's just in the nature of humans to always have that in the back of your head.
Right.
Especially in this day and age.
And that's what we're talking about too, subconsciously.
Especially, I don't want to. So if I'm
swear.
asking someone for something,
That means I really need it.
Handle it.
I'm the same way.
I
I'm the same way.
literally have no other place to turn to.
I'm the same
Literally.
way. Like if I'm asking somebody to do something, that's because I cannot do it myself.
I cannot.
And-
I don't know who else can.
Yeah.
I have no other options, and I need you to
do
help
it
me get to that
specifically.
next step.
That's what I'm saying.
And
Specifically.
at that point, you can hold that over my head because I have now accepted that I have no other way to go about
Right.
doing this,
Right.
and I'm willing to put myself in that position of being indebted to someone else.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I feel like I have a hard time asking people to do things like as favors for myself, but I have no hesitation like to help somebody else.
Why do you think that is?
Okay, unpack.
Come on, man. Let's talk about it.
I just think I know my intentions. Like I can't really tell the intentions of other people.
I feel it.
So at least I know my heart and I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then I just never want someone to come back and say like, oh, well, I did this for you. Like, okay.
But why do you think that is, right? So and just kind of going back to this idea of kind of publicly exposing things that somebody did for you. I had a friend say something to me the other day, pretty much saying that the reason why the receiving party is not really comfortable with the person that did something for them speaking on it is because they're ashamed of what they received from that person. And I don't think that's the case. I think that I should be able to say, I don't want you broadcasting everything you've done for me. Like, is that wrong to say? Like, I don't understand like that concept of like people like it's different if there's something where you're furthering your brand or something like that, or like helping yourself grow. An example that I made a couple of days ago was if you're a personal trainer and you helped one of your homies lose weight, right? And you're like, yo, da 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 da, my homie was this weight, hopped on my plan, and now he's a lighter weight. At that point, yeah, maybe he didn't necessarily want that to be shared. But I mean, even if that's the case, if you didn't want it to be shared, don't share it. But in that case, at least you know that you're trying to get more clients from sharing that information. You know what I'm saying?
So at what point do you have the conversation with the person that's receiving the favor to say, hey, how do you feel about us
As a personal trainer,
broadcasting this?
yeah,
like if you're a personal trainer, You should talk to your friend
Right.
before putting your
Yeah, for
business
sure.
out there.
Yeah, and I call
Facts.
myself halfway through. But okay, and what do you think about that? Like the idea of like furthering your brand, I understand that. But if it's just to, like you said, make yourself feel good, you know, like both of those.
So it gets a little bit. This is where nuances in every situation.
Right.
Personally, when I ask a favor, I'm already making a note of everyone that's already helped me.
Right.
I am wise enough to know that I never did anything on my own.
Right.
Whether it was God, whether it was a friend, whatever it may be.
Right.
So I always give credit where it's due
Right.
from jump.
Right.
Just because I know people are expecting of that.
Right.
That people feel entitled to that.
Like, oh,
And
I did this for da-da-da, yeah.
But it's beyond all that. It's from a heart of gratitude.
Right. Yeah.
I'm grateful for you helping me get here.
Right.
I know I could not have done this without you. I'm going to give you all the props you need because that's just who I am.
Right.
I am a grateful person and I don't take anything for granted. I don't feel like I don't expect anything. I don't expect any handouts.
Right.
But on the reciprocal of that, if I do something for someone, like Naomi said, I know the heart I did it in.
Right.
And I also am very, when it comes to the context of the situation,
Right.
you have to use and apply wisdom. You know, if it's, I'm in an interview like this and I'm talking about a friend who made it somewhere.
Right.
I'm going to stick to whatever is asked of me.
Right.
He did this by his own will, his own hard work, determination, persistence, and
Right.
he got there.
Right.
Dope. Whatever we did on the back end, we know, and that person also knows.
And it does not need
it's
to be brought up.
understood.
Yeah.
Thank
What's
you.
understood does not need to be explained.
I agree.
And that's how I approach that.
Right.
You know, if it's now a point where someone is ungrateful,
Right.
also on a public setting, I'm not going to disgrace them like that.
Right.
And start calling those
Exactly.
favors out.
Yeah.
That's something that what's understood will always be what's
Understood does not
doesn't
have
have to be explained. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just how I feel about
That's
it.
just discipline at that point. 'Cause a lot of
And
people don't have that. You know what I mean?
honestly, I'd rather let people sit with their conscience. I'd rather have people look inwardly on themselves and feel a way about how they acted or
Right.
whatever they're going through
Then
than
to speak
have
out.
me be the person that brings that reckoning to them.
Exactly.
So, like I said, I don't, whatever's done behind closed doors, I keep it behind closed doors.
I feel the same way. And I always tell people this. If I do something for you, the thing is this. For me, unless you're like a homeless person, if I know you and I'm doing something for you, that is because I have made a decision to do that for you. Not because
Exactly.
nobody made me do it.
Right.
Not
Exactly.
because, there's something, whatever. If I'm doing it, that's because I've chosen to do it. And half the time, if I do something for you, I'm not expecting, not even half the time, all the time. If I do something for you, I'm not expecting it back. Because chances are, I'm doing it for somebody I care about anyway. That's my mindset on it personally. Would you say you're the same way?
Yeah, no, I'm doing it out of the kindness of my heart because I want to. Like,
Sort of.
no one's gonna make me do something I don't want
But
to do.
okay, and one thing that I also think as well, when I ask people for things, I know you brought up the point of you ask people for things in situations in which you feel like my back is against the wall and I need you for this, right? I feel like my mindset on those kind of things is when I ask somebody for something, I'm asking you for something that I know that I would do for you if I had the same means to do what I'm asking out of you. Would you guys say it's the same for you guys? So, for example, let's say, I ask you guys to come on my podcast. If you guys had a podcast, I would come on the show if you guys came on the show. Would you guys say that that's your logic? That's always my logic. And even when I do things for other people, it's like, would they do this for me? Has started to become a mentality of mine too, and that's an easy way to not get walked over. So I want to kind of get your thoughts on that from both of you guys.
I feel like when it gets to that point, I'm kind of like analyzing the situation. I don't think initially like my
overanalyzing or just analyzing?
just in general. Like
Okay.
the first favor I ever do for someone, I'm not out the gate like, oh, would this person do this for me?
I guess for me, it comes from a place of like having a lot of people that are just very ungrateful, especially in college, man. There's a lot of people like, if y'all don't watch much, but like, you know what I'm saying? But this, I guess going through that situation of like really looking out for people and people really not giving you that energy back. So I feel like nowadays, like you kind of have to think of it in your mind, like, yeah, I'm doing this for you, but if the shoe was on the other foot, would you look out the same way? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Am I wrong for thinking that way? What do you think about that?
I mean, another thing is that I don't ask people that Well, I won't even say that. If my back is against the wall, I'm going to ask you for a favor.
Right.
I'm going to do that.
Humility.
But I also know that I'm also wise enough to know when someone is lying to me.
Right.
When they say they can't help me in that situation.
Right.
When they're purposeful. And then I take that as a sign, you know?
What signs do you look at when you ask somebody for something and you know that they lying? What does that look like to you?
I mean, simply put, if you're, let's take it this way. If you have a position at a certain company.
Right.
Where I know you have the jurisdiction over certain things that could help aid or benefit me. I know I know, especially if someone referred me to you.
Right.
Because the same thing was done for them.
Right.
And you, for some reason, deny me.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay. Noted. And, you know, it's just a sign for me. It's okay. Now I need to find my own way. Now I need to pave my own path.
Right.
And there have been many times where I haven't been humble enough to go forth and ask someone just because I know that type of person and I just don't want, like I said, that's leverage to be used in any case, in any situation, whether it's publicly or behind closed doors, because those be the worst type of counting favors. When you know they're telling other people, oh yeah, I did this for that person, I did this, That's honestly worse. When it's within circles, you know. I personally take, I won't say offense, but it's just something I do not want in my journey at all.
That's what I would rather not ask. Honestly,
exactly.
I'd rather struggle on my own, bro.
And it's kind of built that persistence in me to not ask for things, to go the hard way, even if it takes longer than it needs to.
At least
I'd rather do that and have the pride that one, I did it by myself, and two, I don't have to worry about anyone having anything to hold against me or my head.
Right. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, but at a certain point, I feel like even though like I'm guilty of not asking anyone for favors, at a certain point you have to realize like there are people in your life who will do it for you 10 times, like they just won't care. So I think it's also important like to appreciate those people and to not just, oh, I'm gonna do it on my own, I'm gonna do it by myself, and you know you run yourself in because you want to do everything by yourself. So I think it's just kind of like to really analyze the people in your life and see like if I can use some help, then I'll use help, but you know, just don't be so quick to like block people off.
Spiritual discernment.
Okay, and speaking of spiritual discernment, Tayo did bring up that he read a verse, and I wanted to share that with you guys today, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to open up the book of Genesis, chapter 14, verse 22. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, with raised hand, I have sworn an oath to the Lord, God most high creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread of the strap of his sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. And I said, I felt that.
It's biblical.
If I was able to make it with God, my family, and myself, and my loved ones, I would do it. If I don't have to ask nobody else, I won't do it. You know what I'm saying? Just to be able to say, I didn't ask. Nobody.
Facts.
Would you say, I mean, I want to hear from both of y'all, but why do you think that is? You kind of stated that you're kind of on that side as well, but I wanted to know, because I feel like a lot of millennials, you know, that's kind of the trend now, especially with black people. You know what I'm saying?
I think, yeah.
Self-made, you know what I'm saying? I don't want no help with nobody. I think there was a whole bunch of people that talk about, you know, I don't want to take handouts from this because I want to be able to say I did on my own.
I would definitely say there's also a cultural aspect to it.
Let's talk about it.
I would definitely say that, again, just the nature of where I was nurtured.
Right.
I definitely was brought up getting it the hard way.
Okay.
You know, going after things, praying for it, doing everything you can in your power to get it, and working as hard as you can to do so.
To achieve it, yep.
And keeping that circle small on that path.
Right.
Because one, you never know who's truly genuinely for you.
Right.
Two, you never know who's actually going to use that against you.
Right.
And just because it's a very, Nigerians are just very from the ground up.
Right.
Made it by myself.
Right.
Did it by myself.
Came to this country,
myself.
did, yeah, exactly.
You know, that's just the mentality that we have,
Right.
and it's kind of seeped into me. I'm starting to learn that that's also a very prideful way of thinking.
Dangerous.
And to use the resources that are in my life because they're there for a reason.
And they're useful, yeah.
So it's all about balance, and it's like I said, all about discernment and knowing when to reach out and when to stick it out on your own.
Okay. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, right? The idea of somebody saying, I don't want anybody to be able to say that they helped me. Obviously, you know, you see a lot of these award shows and things like that where everybody's shouting out everybody who helped them win that award. I will do that. Same way Tayo said, yo, like, you feel me? I have no problem listing out who did whatever for me. But if I didn't need those people specifically, I probably would opt out of it. Would you say you're the same way? And if you are, I want to understand your logic on why.
You would opt out of what?
So like I said, so let's say you won an award, right? And you're listing out all the people that did everything for you. Let's say you're a musician. You list out the producer, the people that, helped you write the song, whatever, the equipment managers, engineers, whatever the case is, right? If you were able to do all that on your own, would you do it on your own just so you could say you did it on your own? Or would you still, take these tribe of people and allow them to do it for you? And what are your thoughts on people that decide to just do everything on their own so nobody can hold it over them? Similar to this verse right here. It's biblical.
I feel like you'll run yourself thin. Like if you really try to sit there and do every single last thing, like you're designing your own graphics, you're doing X, Y, and Z, you're gonna run yourself thin. Like I feel like just like God puts people in your life that can be a resource and that can help you. So like don't block your blessings being so headstrong on the fact that this is like I want to do this by myself. I don't need any help from anybody else.
Okay, so this is a question for you, right? So let's say there's gonna be somebody that is a blessing, but you know that they have ulterior motives. Do you take the blessing at that point, or do you decline the blessing? Because as Tayo said, there are people out there who will not expose you openly, but they will expose you within your circle, right? So they want to be able to say, yeah, you see that little post right there? That was me. But I'm gonna just talk about it in this group right here. But you know that plug that they're about to bless you with is going to take you to the next level. But you know that deep down, I already know they're about to chat about it after the fact. So are you going to take it at that point? Or I want to hear from both of y'all. Are you going to take it at that point? Or are you going to decline it because you know what's coming with it?
Your intention is messed up. Like, if you're sitting
talking
there,
motives right now.
Well, if you're sitting there thinking about the fact that, okay, if this person does this for me, but then once he does it, he's going to sit there and tell everybody in the whole world, no, I don't want that kind of help. Like, there's just, like, I don't want someone that's going to hold it over my head. Granted, what you did for me back in 2015 was 2015. I'm a completely different person now.
Period.
So that's not going to really bother me if you want to go around and tell everybody what you did for me in 2015.
Right.
But at the same time, like, if I have that feeling, I don't want to do any type of business.
But what if you know, like, the aftermath of this is going to be so significant that I might be able to block out this chatter on the side? Still not worth it to you?
No, why would I want to intertwine myself with someone like that? Like, I just don't understand, like, why I would want to put myself in that type of situation.
So for you, it's a morals thing.
Yeah, like, no, I'm good. I'll figure out how to do it and go about my business. With other people, I'm sure that can help me, whatever the case may be. Or if I can't do it by myself, then I'll reach out to those people. But no, like, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm working with somebody or someone is helping me that doesn't have my best interest at heart. That, like, it's short-lived. It's not going to go very far. That one little opportunity, and he's going to go about his business. I wouldn't want to.
I don't know, man. I feel like I might have to think twice about it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If it's a stepping stone where I know, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, this person, they're going to talk about it a little bit, but, it's going to take me to where I want to be. You know what I mean? I'm going to do nothing crazy. This is just them talking to somebody that they know, or a situation where they're putting me, getting my foot in this door. And I know they're going to talk about it, whatever, at the end of the day. It depends on the situation, depends on the person, depends on the magnitude. But I want to hear from you, though, too. What do you think about
exactly. That? It depends exactly what I have discerned I'm going to be losing.
Right.
I always, with everything that I do now, I'm always trying to think, 5 years' time, will this matter to me?
Right.
5 years' time, will I reflect back on this and wish I did something differently?
Right.
If whatever opportunity will come from me working with someone who will hold it over my head is greater than all of that, I would definitely have to make that wise decision and then
I feel that,
deal
bro.
with whatever fallback or fallout comes from that individual.
I feel that.
Because I just feel that we are now in times where everything is it's very transactional.
Right.
And, people are doing things for less and less genuine reasons,
right,
and have so many ulterior motives, and it's really a dog-eat-dog world, even more so like now these days.
It's survival, right? It's survival.
And honestly, it's you have to take the chances that you're given, no matter how they come, but like I said, using that discernment to know and realize and reflect, what's the trade-off for me, and just really analyzing that transaction, what you're getting and what you may have to give, And if it all balances out for you, then, you know, you have to do what's best for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Honestly, if there's a situation where a person is gonna look out for me and the reward is gonna be bigger than the chatting, I'm probably gonna take it. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, all right, whatever. Like, you know, it's gonna be some noise, but I mean,
but I feel like if it's a genuine relationship, that will probably
But that's
get
what I
me
mean.
further and last me longer than this one. Like, you know.
But
Real.
But what I'm bringing up is a situation where it's not necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, it's somebody where you know, like, they have a reputation for being that kind of person that, you know, is always talking about, oh yeah, that's me. But it's like, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, and I've just started to align myself with people that, you know, that lift as you climb mentality.
Right.
You know, I know that when I'm in a position to put someone on, I'm going to do it. And when they're in that position, they're going to help me.
Right.
Where I am building that network where anything I could possibly need or want can be found within that group.
Right.
And if I have to step out, then I know that is a necessity. And like we said, my back is against the wall. And eventually, I'll have to find a way to, you know, counteract with that.
Okay.
But that's just how I operate right now.
I feel that. All right. And final question for both of you. I just wanted one more question for the both of you, right? And as we always talk about, man, you know, we have one lady, one gentleman, so we got to talk about relationships real quick. And that question is, it's a statement. I just want to know if you guys agree or disagree, and we land in this plan right here. So, relationships. I personally do not think that counting favors at any point in a relationship is productive. Do you guys agree or disagree?
Agree.
Why? Why is that? We're going to speak on it. We're going to have this young lady, you know.
If you're counting favors in a relationship, you're counting favors against yourself. I see a relationship as a unit.
Right.
You know, whatever I'm doing for you is going to benefit me. So what do I look like counting a favor against your development when that contributes and leads to my development and betterment?
Exactly.
It's silly. And at that point, it's not a relationship. It's a transaction.
Right.
It's a business transaction. And I know people say, you know, marriage is like a business transaction, and it's
which it
all
is to a
that.
certain degree,
it is
but it's
understood,
also, right.
But you're partners in that business.
Okay.
And anything that's done, any move that's made, is overall for the betterment of that business.
Right.
So you can't check and balance on yourself.
Exactly.
That's silly to me.
Okay.
Period.
And what do you think about that?
I agree. Like, I'm not about to sit here and count favors while I'm in a relationship with someone. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Like, you know, like you said, like, first of all, if I'm doing something and if it doesn't benefit me, it's benefiting you. So it's contributing to your happiness or, like you said, your development.
Right.
So, hey, if you're happy, I'm happy. Like, you know, if you're growing, I'm happy. Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
And
it's just,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And like it's all about sacrifice too.
Right.
That's part of what you are stepping into is a sacrifice, and realizing that, you know, sometimes I'm gonna have to sacrifice more for a period of time, whatever my partner is going through, and other times they'll be sacrificing more. You know, it's all that balance.
Got
Balance.
The balance. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, as I said, this is season 3, episode 7 of the J-Ade Podcast. Thank you to everybody who's been showing me love thus far. We 3 seasons in, man. We still got a couple more episodes in this 3rd season. Make sure to follow your boy on social media at Joe the Great. That's JOETHEGR 8, as well as my podcast page at j.ade.pod. Make sure to follow as created by Naomi B, as told by Naomi B on the gram, as well as TAYOJR on the gram, man. Y'all know what time it is, man. It's love. Appreciate it. We out.
Love.
You are now listening to the J-Ade Podcast. You are now listening to the J-Ade Podcast.